Welcome to the short-term show from Blue Ridge, Georgia. We will cover everything you need to know, including buying, holding, managing from a distance, raising rents, renovating, and how to rent it when you are not using your very own vacation home in the North Georgia mountains. For more information on current purchase prices and income data, please visit theshorttermshop.com. Welcome to the Short Term Show special episodes from Blue Ridge. Short Term Show from Blue Ridge, Georgia. Very exciting stuff. We're going to talk about why this market, what's going on in this market, how many people are coming to this market, regulations, why you want to come here, what is there to do in the mountains of Georgia. I'm long hair Luke, cash flow Carl from the Short Term Shop, Director of Education. Anybody wants to buy a property with the Short Term Shop, we are the best in the business, and I would be very happy to teach you everything I know about managing short-term rental real estate, and that is free. My services are on the house if you purchase a house with the shop. So maybe inadvertently on the house. On the house is it's a pun. You get it? But anyway, let me introduce Yok. Yok is a old school family friend of Avery's family and been around for quite a long time. And he's been in the shop now for a number of years. And anyway, I'll let you introduce yourself, buddy. How's everything?
Oh, going great, man. And thanks for having me on. I feel like it's been a while since you and I have gotten together on one of these.
Yeah, Yok has been on my podcast, Short-Term Rental Management, which is fantastic, and it would love you to give it a 5-star review if you'd like to check it out. But yeah, good to be back, and we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're an agent. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the area? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I moved to Georgia about 10 years ago, and dabbled. I shouldn't say dabbled. My job initially was. I was a social media management, did a lot of stuff. Actually, I was a preferred marketing developer for Facebook. And one day I had a guy come up to me wanting to do some advertisements revolving around selling real estate. And this guy kept on coming back to me. I was like, man, he said, man, Yok, these ads are working really well, man. We're making a lot of money. And that's all I needed to hear. I was like, well, instead of you making money, I'm going to start making money. You know what I mean? So I shut down the social media management stuff that I was doing and went straight into real estate. And honestly, had a couple bad when I moved up here. Had a couple bad experiences with real estate, and I said to myself, "There's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a more honest way to do this." And so I got into it and absolutely love it. We've been here in North Georgia. Basically since we've moved here and absolutely love it. I mean, it's a beautiful place to be. I really feel blessed to be doing what I'm doing to walk these mountains, so to speak, every day and share what we have to the rest of the country.
Absolutely. Yep. That's fantastic news, man. And speaking of, let's dive right into the geographic area. Where are we talking? What area of Georgia specifically, and what areas do we want to look at, and which ones to stay away from?
Great question. So, Blue Ridge market, a lot of people confuse the Blue Ridge Mountains with Blue Ridge, Georgia. I want to be specific and say Blue Ridge, Georgia is the market, okay? The town of Blue Ridge. Now, that also, in my mind, okay, that also kind of covers multiple, I'm not going to call them cities because they're certainly not that, but multiple towns around Blue Ridge that compose what I call the Blue Ridge market. Okay. So obviously at ground zero, you do have Blue Ridge, and that is where everybody wants to be. Again, you have 30513 area code, Blue Ridge postal code. That's where you want to be. Okay. I mean, that is ground zero. That's the best of the best. But realize that can be a little out of reach for a lot of people. The properties there, they do cost more, but they do make more. Let's be honest with you, because you're really close to downtown. But also in that same marketplace, I like to tell people, yes, that does include Cherry Log, okay, which is south of town. That does include Morganton, which is east of town. That does include Mineral Bluff, which is north of town. And, that corridor that goes all the way up to McCaysville, right up to the Tennessee border. It incorporates all of that. So I tell everybody, drop a pin at the McDonald's in Blue Ridge. No, it's not a unique tourist destination, but it is kind of center mass of Blue Ridge. And if you can be less than 20 driving minutes from that in just about any direction, you'll be in good shape. The only reason I say just about any direction is if you go directly west, it can get a little hairy in terms of the drive and just kind of poor roads. I want everybody to know this is still rural Georgia. But there are some areas, I'm not going to call them like we certainly don't have much that's 4x4 required. But it can get to the point where you would struggle if you were in a Honda Civic. You know what I mean? So I tell people, we're going to avoid those areas. We want to get you in spots where, if the family's loaded up in the minivan and they've got, 4 kids in it and 2 adults and, the turtle shell full of stuff, you can still make it to the property. And I would say 98% of the properties are accessible in that situation.
I want to zoom in a little bit more hyper local on that. But before we do, let's zoom out to the areas that are coming to this area. Atlanta, obviously, number one. And I would assume Chattanooga and Athens, Georgia. And I don't know, maybe you get some Knoxville folks, maybe not. But just talk about kind of the general where is the population of the area coming from?
Great question. So oddly enough, our 2 biggest markets, obviously number 1 is going to be Metro Atlanta. Okay. People don't realize that Atlanta is actually kind of in the northern part of the state. All right. So from the north reaches of Metro Atlanta, you're probably about an hour to 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes from Blue Ridge. So you could knock off of work on a 4 o'clock on a Friday or Thursday and be eating dinner in Blue Ridge very, very comfortably, at 6 or 7 o'clock. So, the proximity to Atlanta, that is, the bloodline of Blue Ridge. The second,
which also we should mention is one of the biggest metropolitan areas in the United States. It's a massive city.
Absolutely. I mean, it's my understanding it's the richest town in the Southeast. So, it is you're, from the airport, you're about 2 hours from the Atlanta airport. So again, not terrible. Hell, an hour of that's just driving through Atlanta, right? Okay. Let's be honest. Only, from North Metro Atlanta, which I would say is probably kind of like Canton, Georgia, you got about a 60-minute drive. And it's highway the whole way, straight shot, super easy. You never have to turn.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Atlanta is very well known for having absolutely horrible traffic. If you've never been there, it does get pretty nasty. But you're looking at like 6-7 million people in the Atlanta metropolitan area.
Yeah.
So this is a major metro, and one thing I know about major metros is they like to get out of there. They like to get out of there on the weekends, and Blue Ridge is their Hamptons, if you will. So anyway, go ahead.
For sure. And then I'm going to say the biggest and kind of most surprising thing that a lot of people don't realize is Florida. Okay. We get tons of traffic from the state of Florida. And why is that? Well, if you're on 75 heading north out of Florida, which most people are, okay, that's the main thoroughfare heading north out of Florida. You take 75, you're going to go through Macon, you're going to go through Atlanta, you keep taking it north. And you can jump off 575 and you're in Blue Ridge. So for Florida residents, Blue Ridge, it kind of is the first cabin community that you come to if you start driving north. So if you want to escape the heat down in Florida, you start heading north, you're going to hit Blue Ridge before you hit anything else. So because of that, we just have tons and tons and tons of, Florida traffic. You go downtown and 20 to 30% of the car tags at any given time are going to be from Florida.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now you mentioned Cherry Log. That is a name that you hear fairly often. Yep. Well, hold on. Let's back up. Blue Ridge itself is just a beautiful little city, right? I mean, can you explain that to me as if I've never been there? What does it look like in a nutshell?
Yeah. It's it's your standard Southern little town. We've got some, boutique shopping and things like that to go downtown, your standard kind of, what you call them, what you will, your tourist traps, if you want to go buy your saltwater taffy and get your ice cream and your donuts and your cupcakes, we have all that. But it's a very small little town. At one point in time, I was told there's only 1,200 residents inside the city limits. Okay. So it pretty much is when you talk about Blue Ridge, really what you're talking about is kind of the urban sprawl of it. You know, that's where all the cabins are. Okay. Right. To be honest with you. Now we do have a nice lake. We have Blue Ridge Lake. You know, and during the summer, a lot of people come there. You can rent boats and do all that. I'm not going to say it's a huge pull. You know, the locals probably use it more than the tourists, but we definitely have the lake. But again, it's just a sleepy little town with a lot of mom and pop restaurants, a lot of local businesses. You know, and it's definitely kind of got a different feel than the rest of Georgia. I tell people, you know, not to get political, but it's kind of a hippie. You know, it's kind of a purple little town. You know, it's got a pretty hard hippie vibe to it at times. We're big into Bigfoot. And you know, usually it's just got a unique flair. You know, a lot of these Georgia towns do, even including like Savannah. You know, kind of the same way. We've got our own flair. We've got our own flavor. We do things our way, and people love us for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Super cool little town, and it is tiny. I searched the actual population, and it's 1244 as of 2021, which is about the exact same size as the town I grew up in the middle of nowhere. But it's a whole different vibe because this is a tourist town. You know, you got a lot of people coming in from elsewhere, but let's spread out a little bit. Do we go all the way down to, I hear Ellijay a lot. Is that, okay. You know, tell me about Ellijay.
Yeah. You know, I tell people Ellijay, I don't consider it the Blue Ridge market specific. Ellijay, again, you're talking Gilmer County here, and it's a fine place to be. It's a fair place to be, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't draw the revenues that Blue Ridge does. Okay. It's 30, you know, about 30 minutes south of Blue Ridge. Prices there, you know, it usually, you know, I'm going to make a generalization, but it usually costs about 15 to 20% less to buy there, and it makes 15 to 20% less. Are there some instances where you can kind of skew, you know, those metrics and those numbers? Absolutely. You know, there are some good opportunities to be found in there, but on the whole, I don't want people to really confuse Ellijay with Blue Ridge. It does tend to make less money, but it is cheaper to get into. So if you're kind of the first time person and you're wanting to kind of buy something would be quick, you know, something easy to manage that isn't, you know, a $750,000 property. Maybe you got 375. Man, let's slip into the Coosawhattie River Resort here in Ellijay and find you something. I mean, that's you know, it is a dense community. It's a little bit different than what you would find in Blue Ridge, but it's you know, there's thousands of homes in there. It's a massive subdivision, which they allow short-term rentals. And, you know, you can find property in there for significantly cheaper than you could, you know, in Blue Ridge. So again, good opportunities to be had in Ellijay, especially if you're kind of looking at a certain price point.
Pull your map back up for me and show me exactly where that is, Ellijay versus Blue Ridge, just briefly, and then we'll move our way on up to White Pass.
For sure. Yes, sir. So here we have, if you can see my cursor, here we have Blue Ridge right here. All right, I have the heart. Ellijay's down here. Okay, this is Ellijay. So you take, you know, you're down 76, and Ellijay's this little town here. Now, again, just like Blue Ridge, you know, we'll save regulations for a little later on, but you do need to buy outside of the city limits, okay? Because of sound ordinances for years and years and years, they're not letting you buy properties in the city limits. So the hack is, so to speak, is this area right here. And you can see all these roads. This is the Coosawhattie River Resort. Okay. Tons and tons and tons of rentals within this area. Okay. And it's very accessible.
That layer button for me one time down there, the layers button on the bottom left corner.
Yep.
There we go. There's a little bit better view. Okay.
Yep. So, you know, this is the Coosawhattie right here. And you can see it's still wooded. You know, I mean, it's a nice little area. But all these little roads right here, this is that subdivision. It's one of the biggest subdivisions in North Georgia. Okay. But, you know, again, very accessible. You're coming down from Atlanta, or excuse me, you're coming up from Atlanta. You're on, you know, here we are. This is North Metro Atlanta. You just, you know, drive right on through. You're on 515, and you can pull right in here. There's multiple entries into the Coosawhattie. Great place to be. I do, Luke, not to get off topic, we have Carter's Lake over here. There's some beautiful properties at beautiful prices. The problem is a lot of all this dirt around the lake is owned by the Corps of Engineers and is not buildable. So there's really not a big lake vibe there, to be honest with you. You can buy some beautiful properties out here with amazing views for really cheap, but you have to drive 30 minutes out into the middle of nowhere, and there's not that lake life vibe, if you know what I mean. So I generally tell people, Carter's Lake it's a wild card. I would just suggest we're spending a lot of money here. Let's get something that's a little more closer to ground zero, a little more of a sure enough done deal, as opposed to, going way out here.
Okay. Wonderful. Let's scoot up a little bit to the north.
Yep.
Do we do anything in White Path? What's going on there?
Okay. White Path, not so much, but we do have, Cherry Log is going to be right in this area here. Cherry Log.
We hear Cherry Log all the time. Does Cherry Log have like an actual downtown? Is it, again, I'm
not really.
A random person, never been there. What's it look like?
No. It's just a bump in the road. It's just all these little towns, to be honest with you, are just a way to divide the postmen up,
right.
Post people up. So no, to be honest with you. Now we do have our golf club, White Path. What we do have down here is we have, one of our golf courses. And no, there's a community there. I'm trying to think the name of it escapes me. Buckhorn Estates. You'll see properties in there for fairly nice properties. I mean, really nice properties for, $600,000. Where in Blue Ridge, it would be $1 million. But the problem is they are not really short-term rental friendly. They just don't allow them. So I tell everybody, don't get tricked by that. Okay. They're not letting rentals happen on the golf course.
Right.
And that's probably the case in most parts of the country, I would assume. But no, what we do have in Cherry Log is Expedition Bigfoot. That's our Bigfoot museum. It is what it is. If you're into it, go to it. My kids absolutely love it. But no, this right here, this area here, if you can kind of see me circling it, this is what I call Cherry Log. Okay. We've got Cherry Log on this side. We have Hidden Lake on this side of the road, and we have Cherry Lake on the west side of the road. Both of them are about the same. I would say Cherry Log is very, that's a good place if you're looking to spend, less than 600,000, even less than 500,000. Cherry Log's a good opportunity for you. Cabins are a little bit older. It's, a little more of a established neighborhood. It really is just a big neighborhood, to be honest with you. And to me, it feels a little more like Tennessee, a little more dense, more cabins, smaller cabins. You don't find those big mega cabins in Cherry Log. So again, in a fun little mountain drive, to be honest with you, it's not harrowing or anything like that. But when you get into Cherry Log and you pull in there, you kind of pull off the road and you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. You're with the family and you're on a little bit of an adventure. Again, you can access all of it in the minivan, real easy to do, but you're putting around, it's a mix between paved and dirt roads through this little mountain community, and it's kind of a beautiful place to be.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move on up closer to actual Blue Ridge or wherever you think you need to take us.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop this back on so we can kind of look around. So a lot of great opportunities here west of town on 76 going toward Blairsville. Okay, Blairsville is another town where people want, they're asking me, hey, I want to get something in Blairsville. The county over here in Blairsville, they have short-term regulations that are kind of not making it favorable. So I tell everybody, if you're going to go west out of town, you want to stay in Fannin County. Okay. You want to stay in Fannin County. So if you kind of go about, you essentially want to be west of Lake Notley here. And you won't really run into any significant, you'll just run into the basic regulations. So this is Morganton. Morganton is on the north and south side of 76 here. So anything down in this area can be really, really good. It's not as mountainous through here, a little more kind of rolling hills. So let me cut the layers on. And when I say rolling hills, like this whole area right here is a lot of pasture land, but it's beautiful. It looks really cool. There's a lot of cabins overlooking this rolling hill pasture type stuff. Beautiful place to be. Same as down here. Okay. Again, we're still in Morganton here. Actually, there is a little town of Morganton. There's nothing really there's nothing there other than a stop sign in a bait shop. Okay. So there's not really any other significant attraction there. Let's talk about another area, Luke. So we have the lake, and another real hot area right now is the Aska Adventure area. And the Aska Adventure area, basically, let me turn on my layers. You have Aska Highway, and we'll zoom in, but is this Aska Road, okay? And it basically it is a 2-lane highway that's well paved, that runs through the forest alongside the lake here. Now, I tell people you don't want to get too south of the lake because the drive it's not bad, but if you're not used to driving down winding roads late at night, there are a lot of deer, there are a lot of wildlife there. So I tell people you're best served to kind of be, don't go south of the lake. When you go down Aska Highway, let me see if I can figure out. I'm trying to figure out a way to show roads a little better. But this is the Aska Highway. Okay. Great properties down there, but don't go too far south of the lake. And for reason number 2, it becomes pretty remote, and internet and cell phone down there can be very spotty. Okay. And in 2023, Luke, like I do, those are things you just got to have. Mm-hmm. So again, let's not forget we are in rural Georgia, but again, to hit on the Aska Adventure area, tons of tubing, some of the best fly fishing, are all of our trailheads. I mean, we have trailheads here that if you're serious enough, tie into the Appalachian Trail. Okay. So we get tons and tons. If you're an outdoor enthusiast, chances are you're going to want to be in this Aska Adventure area along the lake here, just off Aska Road. Some beautiful, beautiful properties, great opportunities. And again, if you're that outdoor enthusiast, this may be the place for you.
Okay. Cool.
Another area we can
locations here. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Now, when folks say Blue Ridge, they're not really talking about the actual city of Blue Ridge, right? So
they're not. That's right.
How close do I want to get?
Yeah. Again, I tell people drop a pin at the McDonald's in Blue Ridge, which it's, right around, it's center mass of town. Okay. You drop a pin at the McDonald's in Blue Ridge, and you are going to, it's just right. There's Waffle House. There's McDonald's right there.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. But I don't want to be right in town is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no. You got to be outside these city limits. And you can kind of see on the map, if you zoom in, you can kind of see what the city limits are.
They're very small,
drive
right?
60 seconds in any direction, you're outside the city limits.
The south end is the adventure park, and the right end, the north end is there's like a big hotel up there or something.
Yeah. There's a grocery store, et cetera. The Ingalls. Once you get north of Ingalls, you're fine. Walmart's right here. So once you get past Walmart, like I said, 99% of the cabins you see for sale are going to be outside the city limits. So,
right. So normally, in other words,
not hard to do.
Right. I don't even need to keep an eye out for that. It's most likely it's not going to be in the city limits.
That's right. Okay. There's one outlier, Luke, and I'm glad you bring it up. There is a neighborhood right here. I'm going to zoom out to where you see the city limits. That half of it is split up in the city limits. Half of it is out in the county. The name of the community is called Mountaintops. Great place to be. Some of the highest earning properties in North Georgia are found in Mountaintops. You just got to make sure you get one that's out in the county. Okay. And it's pretty simple to do, but okay. you do have to be cognizant of that. And the thing is you have kind of all that. You have community water, you have super fast internet, you got all the kind of what I would call city amenities, so to speak, but you're still kind of in a cabinish area. And you're only 6 minutes from downtown. So that's why it's so desirable and can make so much money.
Wonderful.
Other than that, this corridor heading to Tennessee to McCaysville is really starting to fire up through here. I told people, a couple of years ago, you get past north of the hospital, not necessarily, there's they're doing some road construction here. So it's not necessarily the greatest spot. I'm here to tell you, a lot of builders found a lot of cheap dirt through here, and they are really starting to blow this up. And I'm telling you right now, McCaysville has kind of gone through some gentrification. they're doing it's a small little town. Like McCaysville, you can go visit it. You can spend, it's not a full day in McCaysville. It can be if you go. There's great tubing up here and stuff like that to do up here. Great fishing as well. Horseshoe Bend Park, one of my favorite places to hang out, is here around McCaysville. But 2 years ago, I would have said, this isn't a place to look at. But now that McCaysville is starting to kind of blow up a little bit, I tell everybody, do not hesitate to get in this strip between Blue Ridge and McCaysville. It's doing really, really well right now. And they're starting to build a lot of nice little subdivisions through there. So don't sleep on McCaysville. The next area I'll talk about here is Epworth. Epworth is a little town. I tell everybody the town of Epworth, it sucks, Luke. It's a dump. It's not that great. But outside of McCaysville, there are some really, really nice areas. And again, 3, 4, 5 years ago, when everything was blowing up, when COVID was hitting, all the builders were finding some really good property at really good prices. And this is where they started blowing up and building some, I'm just going to say, magnificent properties. I'm closing on one next Friday that is a 6-figure earner, and it is absolutely spectacular. So,
let's say I'm just a regular old family from Atlanta that just wants a house out in the woods and doesn't, wants to rent it sometimes, but not like all that concerned with heavy income. Is there a particular area where that type of person would be, or he could also, or she could also consider any of these areas as well?
You consider them all, man. We're not as built up like Tennessee, and I know I keep saying that, but every community, every house is fairly unique. It's not Sevierville where there's 80 home subdivisions and what's going on. Here, every situation is unique. Even these communities, a lot of them, they've had 2 or 3 builders go in there and they've been built up over the course of 20 years. So it's not these communities like you would find in Pigeon Forge, et cetera, that were just kind of all built at once and are kind of, everything in there is standard. So I tell everybody, we need to look at each opportunity individually and judge them accordingly.
Got it. All right. Anything else we need to know about location?
Not really. I would just say, again, due west of town. You see here where it says zipline canopy tours. Out here can be a little harrowing. If you go directly west, there's an area called Cassius Valley. That can be a little tough. Cassius Valley Cemetery. All this through here, mega views, Luke, through here. And there's people that make a lot of money out here. I'll just tell you, you start kind of getting into that 4x4 recommended, not necessarily required, but 4x4 recommended territory. And if you're not into that, let's try to stay away from properties directly west of Blue Ridge. They're just can be a little tougher to get in and out of.
I got it. I am into that, but that can definitely affect things for overall, especially if you're from the city and not used to that kind of thing.
That's right. We want to catch as many as many flies as possible.
All right, let's talk about tourism in general, about how many folks are coming to the area, and what kind of attractions we have.
Sure. Well, I tell everybody, and you've heard me say this again, Blue Ridge is the place. It's kind of, and I think this is I may be stealing this from another state, but it is kind of a nature lover's paradise. It's what people do. People are coming here, they're not coming here for a ski lift. They're not coming here for a roller coaster or go-karts. They're not coming here for putt-putt golf. They're not coming here for the beach. People are coming here to kind of unwind and hang out and get away from those things. So it is, we've got world-class fly fishing. We've got canoeing, kayaking, tubing, anything like that, during the warmer months, is down the Aska is absolutely loaded with people doing all that. And you will have a great time doing all the tubing. I mean, it is awesome. And actually, I'm going to stand on my head and say this right now. Our tubing in Fannin County is better than Helen, Georgia. For some reason, everybody thinks the tubing is great in Helen, Georgia. It's very mediocre. It's not fun. You're sitting in the tube. They don't have any adventure tubing. Here we have adventure tubing, which is cool. It is a blast. You get a little bit of rapids and stuff like that. But yeah, we've got like 17 or 18 vineyards and wineries within about an hour and a half. So because of that, we get a lot of these groups that want to do those wine tours. So look, we're not Sonoma. Okay. We're not Napa Valley. We're the redneck version of that. Instead of a nice charcuterie board, you're going to show up and there's going to be probably some Velveeta cheese and a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Okay. We do things our way. This is, but we love it. We've got a ton of these little vineyards and they're pet friendly. They're kid friendly. They'll have, a little blues band or, something, maybe a little band, somebody outside picking and grinning, and you can get your flight of wine and hang out, have a great time, have the dog running down the road, have the kids playing, board games or whatever. Great time for families. We do have the boutique shopping downtown, some pretty great boutique shopping. My understanding for the women, there's some of these boutique stores, clothing and stuff, that you may only find in the city. And when I say city, I mean Atlanta. So there's a lot of people that come from, north Metro Atlanta, come to Blue Ridge to do some boutique shopping. Hiking. I talked about it earlier. We got trailheads that tie into the Appalachian Trail. Whether you're a novice or, a hardcore hiker, we have something for you. Also you can hike to dozens of waterfalls that we have around here. I'm trying to think what else, spas, saunas, that type deal. Again, it really is a nature lover's play. And I say all that to kind of go into, you have to understand one thing that makes Blue Ridge maybe more unique than, say, Tennessee is people are coming to Blue Ridge. And when they come to Blue Ridge, your cabin is the cornerstone of their stay. Okay. We don't have Mickey Mouse. Okay. We don't have the beach. You know how it is, Luke. I mean, your success can a lot of times be based on your proximity to either of those two draws. Mm-hmm. Here, you make your own money. Okay. If your cabin kicks butt, you can write your own check, man, because you're not handcuffed by being so close to a certain landmark that if you're not close to that, you have this glass ceiling. You know what I mean? And for me, that's what makes this, area so special from a cabin community standpoint is you really do create, control your own destiny.
What would you say there? I guess this is what you're saying. There's maybe a few less things to do here than the average tourist town, but that's exactly what people are looking for. They just want to be out in the woods.
You hit the nail on the head. People want to go to our orchards and, do all that stuff, and they want to go fishing and they want to do, visit all the parks and all that. Absolutely. But again, you're not as hamstrung on other things as you may be in other short-term rental markets, like I said, like proximity to the beach or proximity to, an amusement park.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Let's talk about a little bit, just to dabble a little bit. We'll get deeper into this in a later episode of the short-term show from Blue Ridge here, but prices. Am I a little cheaper than you already mentioned Disney and the beach? Maybe I'm a little cheaper. I guess what can I expect? Again, somebody might be listening to this in 10 years, so we got to keep that in mind. But as far as purchase prices are concerned, where am I sitting here? Yeah,
so kind of our bread and butter are 3 bedrooms. Okay. And I tell everybody this because I get posed this question a lot, Luke, and I try to answer this the best I can. I've sold, a 3-bedroom for $450,000. I've sold one for $1.125 million. Okay. So prices are a little bit all over the map, to be honest with you. Again, your proximity to town has a lot to do with that. Your view has a significant portion to do with that.
Let me talk views. Slow down. I'm a view junkie. I'm a sucker for a view. Let's talk about that just briefly here. Are they common? Are they not common? 50% of them are going to have views, 20% of them, and are they quite a bit more expensive?
So I wouldn't be comfortable giving you a percentile, but I'll say the majority of them don't.
Do not.
Okay.
So in other words, I guess that would mean that I do not need a view to rent.
That is correct.
Okay.
Let's break that down a little bit. So I would say probably, less than half have what I would call a long range mountain view. Yes, we do. There's probably a big portion of them that have kind of a seasonal view. Okay. Some of them that just kind of, you're catching glimpses of long range mountains, but I would say probably only a quarter of them have those views where you open the back door and your jaw just drops.
Okay. I got you.
What I call $1 million views. Okay. Yeah. I'd say probably, maybe even less than a quarter of them do. With that being said, I tell people that Blue Ridge, where we are geographically, we don't quite have the terrain changes that the Smoky Mountains have. We don't have the elevation changes. We don't have as many of those, what I call $1 million views. So because of that, simple supply and demand, right? Mm. The ones with the views do call, there is probably more of a premium on a view in Blue Ridge than there may be on the whole in Gatlinburg. You know what I mean? I don't know. I would say here a long range view can be a $200,000 to $300,000 premium.
Okay.
Now depending, right? It's if you don't know this game, Luke, and you own more properties than I'll probably walk into this year, but when it's hard to quantify a view, right? Like, how good is your view? What's the value of your view? Yeah, there are those where you walk out on the back patio and you have a 270 degrees of, long range mountain view, but most of them are not that. You walk out on the patio and you kind of have your window, so to speak. You have basically, a sight line cut out to where you can kind of access that view and yourself and your clientele can look at it. So it's hard to justify that, but I do want to tell people that there is a premium on a long range view here in Georgia simply because we don't have as many of them. Okay. Now here's the bonus. In those slower months, the kind of those when it gets cold and the leaves are on the ground and it's not Thanksgiving, it's not Christmas, it's not New Year's. If you want to have that calendar packed out fourth quarter in, early spring, that's when the view is going to separate you. You could increase your occupancy 20%, 30% by having that view. Because that's when you kind of start separating, the 50 percentile from the 75th to the 95th percentile of earners, right? Hinges on the view.
Okay, now, great.
I want to add, what if I can't afford a view? What do I need to do? And I tell everybody, this is pretty simple. And again, it's kind of the beauty of Blue Ridge. You're going to have to kill people with amenities. Okay. I don't have a view. So what am I going to do to up my occupancy rate? You're going to have pretty sweet amenities. Okay. We don't have, thank God, I don't know how you guys do it in Tennessee. We don't have the indoor swimming pool thing to deal with. So that's not us, but you're going to have a hot tub. You're going to have a game room. You're going to have a fire pit and not just, 4 stumps and a pile of bricks. You need to have something that looks nice and photographs nicely. Okay. Yeah. In your game room, you can't just go and buy, spend $250 on an arcade one up, throw it in the corner and then have a 32-inch Magnavox, in the corner. That's not going to work. Yeah. You really need to concern yourself with kind of top flight amenities if you want to draw people in, because people here are not scared to spend money on their furnishings. And Luke, you hadn't spent a lot of time here, but I can tell you this from somebody who has spent time in the Smokies and spent times here, our cabin's a little more bougie than anywhere else than you're going to find in the Southeast. Our renters, our clientele base, they have a little different expectations. Okay. Because I'll go back to what we were talking about earlier. Your cabin's the cornerstone of their stay. It's not like going to the beach where people just want a place to lay their head, brush their teeth, wash their hair.
Location.
Yep. So here we are more sensitive to amenities. So if you are the person that really cares about having a cool cabin, man, you can write your check here. You can make a killing here.
Speaking of, let's say a qualified operator is coming into town, buys let's just go with like a 4-bedroom house. And can you throw any kind of random number at me as far as gross income? Like somebody that's been to Management Monday with the short-term shop and knows what they're doing and maybe has a couple of properties elsewhere, maybe not a total noob. What can I expect gross income wise? And I know that's a very difficult question to answer, but just give me a speech on that.
It is. I would expect a well-managed, a good host that's going to provide the amenities that I'm going to call her standard, on a 4-bedroom, probably year one, your first 12 months, like I tell everybody, this is a ramping up process, right? You don't make the money in year one that you make in year 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, Luke.
No.
Short-term rentals.
I don't care what kind of real estate you're doing. Any kind of real estate.
Short-term rentals, long-term investment. Right. You're the one who taught me that.
Right.
So year one.
Actually, we'll give that one to the boss. That's Avery, of course, who wrote the book on it.
Hey, fair enough.
Yes,
fair
sir.
enough. Do credit.
Yes.
So, but no, I would expect a 4-bedroom year one. You're making, 75 while you're kind of, 75K and above. That should be where the kind of that range you're in, give or take. And, hopefully by year 3, you're doing 6 figures. That's where you want to be, above 6 figures. Luke, here we don't have, again, we're not as sophisticated on the rental side as you guys are in the Smoky Mountains. So it is a little more of a greenfield opportunity. We've got a lot of people who just do an average job, right? They haven't listened to your podcast. They haven't read Avery's book. They just look around at their neighbors. They're doing what their neighbors do. And we have a lot of what I call grandma's big brown cabin. And there's no hook. We talked about
I like that. I like that it's grandma's big brown cabin. That makes me excited. I can come in there and smoke everybody.
That's right. And here's the downfall. Here's what hurts it. You get on that, you start doing the enemy method and you're saying, oh, this 4-bedroom, man, it made 56,000. And you're like, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. The neighbor made 50. What you don't realize is, man, it's a lot of haves and have-nots here, because the vast majority of people, again, have grandma's big brown cabin. And if you are a dedicated host and you're willing to kind of put in the effort and the resources in the decor, you can kill it here. Again, you can write your own check, but you need to be committed to doing that.
Right.
We've only got, I think, there's about 2,200 cabin rentals.
Oh.
So it's not a ton.
No, that's really not much at all. I mean, so in other words, your competition is, it's not that hard. You can just go in there and be better than everybody else. There's less people to be better than.
That's right. And we do have management companies here. And I'll be honest with you, some of them do a pretty fair job, but most of them are kind of, if you were to look at their listings and the job they do, you would just say those people have it on cruise control, not really pushing the barriers. And my motto is, when you're in Blue Ridge, it's not keeping up with the Joneses, it's one-upping the Joneses. And if you focus on one-upping the Joneses, meaning all the cabins around you, dude, you're going to kill it.
Right.
You're going to kill it. And,
I don't think is necessary in every market. A lot of people are doing that in every market, and it's driving me nuts. These people are coming in with these helicopter pads on the roof and all this crazy nonsense. And I'm like, you don't need all that, in a town like Destin, Florida. What you need is location and a nice pool is really all you need, and clean sheets. But in your market, you could go a little bit crazier. And also, if you got somebody in the family that's prone to interior design, maybe she could take advantage of that and really make the place look cool.
Absolutely. And I tell people, this isn't, and verbatim, I tell all my clients, when I say one up in the Joneses, we're not importing marble from Italy for countertops. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. What I'm talking about is, get rid of the 32-inch Magnavox downstairs, put in a big screen. Okay. Instead of buying the cheapest arcade you can find, buy 3 of the cheapest arcades you can find. Okay. Do that little extra, that 1 to 2 extra that everybody else isn't doing is where you're going to make your money. And if you're not willing to do that 1 to 2% extra, man, Blue Ridge may not be for you.
I got you. Okay, cool. Let's talk. Let's wrap it up with the most boring topic. Let's put everybody to sleep before we say goodbye on this episode with regulations. What are we looking at there?
Okay, so Fannin County is going to be Blue Ridge. Gilmer County is going to be Ellijay. Gilmer, basically stay out of the city limits and you're, going to be good to go. Now, look, don't hold me to all these. There are other things, but basically stay out of the city limits and you're fine. They just did add a layer of regulations into Blue Ridge, but nothing crazy. Okay. It really is common sense, because it's kind of been the wild, wild west. Okay. Now, you got to have a fire extinguisher. Okay. You got to have one on both floors and it has to be visible. You need to have signage out for 911 purposes. Okay. You can't just be a hidden cabin in the woods. You got to get the little, the road sign, the little numbered road sign. You've got to get that. The biggest changes that they've actually made that are of any significance have to do with occupancy. What they're trying to cut down on, and it's kind of revolves around septic tanks. Okay.
And this is brand new. The reason you're even mentioning this is because it's brand new and it seems to be.
This came into play I think less than 10 days ago.
Oh, okay. So this is a bit of a gray area, but that's okay. We'll cover it anyway.
Yeah. And everything's kind of in flux at the courthouse. They're trying to kind of figure out what they're doing. I think a few of these regulations got passed without understanding of how they're going to enforce this, and they're already starting to walk a bit of this back. I don't want to get into too many details, but I'll kind of hit the couple high points here. So number one, they don't want the original 2-bedroom cabin that's been built up and turned into a 5-bedroom cabin that's sitting on a 2-bedroom septic. They don't want that going on any longer. Okay. So they are setting kind of occupancy ceilings based on septic. And it is, for us, it's a number that's very workable. Okay. They long story short, they don't want 20 people in a 3-bedroom. Okay. Why has that happened? Well, I think in the past couple of years, somebody, especially things that are in a subdivision, a cabin that's in a subdivision in an HOA, they've got, 22 people staying in a house with a 2-bedroom septic. It blows up. And now you have the neighbors having to smell that for 2.5 weeks. Yeah. It's brutal.
No, so, I like that rule. It sounds like they haven't quite figured out the kinks with that just yet.
No, they haven't. And again, they're starting to walk a lot of this back. But it's a very fair rule. I don't want anybody to think it's going to get in the way of them making a lot of money. It's not. It's just common sense rule. And for the most part, we don't get a lot of like spring breakers. So you're not going to get, it's a lot of families and stuff like that, mixed families. You're not going to get
and even a little bit, maybe more, I don't know, a little bit more well-to-do than the spring
mature.
Break crowd.
Is mature a fair word?
There you go.
Yeah, you will get a lot more mature guests. You're not going to get the group of 18 wanting to stay in your 3-bedroom and they're all dividing, splitting them. You know what I mean? Like a 3-bedroom, it's going to be, 4 adults and 4 kids. You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to be very standard. That's, occupancy of about 8. That's what you're going to look at there. So they're just kind of, again, they're trying to kind of curtail the craziness. And not that there's a ton of exploitation, but you can kind of see where they're going from. And as you said, good rule to have. The next kind of sticking point is, and this only has to do with some houses, is the parking situation. This is another one that they're looking to limit. They're basically saying they don't want, again, a house that accommodates 6 people or 8 people to show up with 5 cars.
I agree.
You agree.
I totally agree. I tell my guests that all the time. Do not bring extra cars to my house. If you want to bring extra cars, go to the guy next door. I don't want that crap.
That's right. And so some houses, Luke, some cabins have great little parking pads and you can slide 5 cars in there easily. I don't think, one man's opinion, they're really going to be looking at those instances. Where they're looking at why this rule exists is there's a lot of cabins that were just built on the edge of a mountain road, and you may just have a little bump out for parking and it may hold 2 cars comfortably. Okay. And if you got 8 people, 4 per car, it works perfectly. But then again, if your cabin if you got 8 people and now you got 3 or 4 cars on this little bump out, and you've got one person hanging their front bumper into the mountain road and another person hanging their back bumper out into the mountain road, it becomes a problem not only just for people getting up and down the road, but we have to think about like 911 and ambulances and fire department, things like that. So again, it's a regulation that makes perfect sense, Luke. A lot of people are all up in arms. They're blowing this up like, oh my God, they're just trying to make it safe, and they're trying to make it actually better for owners and hosts to where you may not get in trouble.
Yeah, these are all good things. And the reason this is being brought up is because this is all so fresh and new that everybody's it's like a lot of chatter going on about this and things. That's right. Now, again, just Google the county. And they're going to have a website set up. We don't want to offer any kind of legal advice or anything like that as far as licenses and permits, et cetera. But the county's going to have a phone number on their website where you can call and ask, somebody that's an actual representative of the state of Georgia, and they will, or the county, and they will be happy to answer your questions. But the overall vibe is that, this area is very short-term, pro-short-term for the most part. There are, within the city limits, a couple of areas that are, you can't do it at all. But for the most part, they do like vacations there, and it's a thriving vacation town, and they want us to be there. Is that true?
Absolutely. Host and renters are our bread and butter. It's why, it's why people come here. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. We love it. Yeah. Can you get an unruly bunch, dude? That's anywhere, man. Right. I've seen a few rowdy people in Panama City before.
Right, yeah.
Every now and then those cats, they come up here as well. But they're just trying to protect everybody. And at the end of the day, they want these cabin communities to be safe. They want hosts to be safe. They want to create an environment that works well for everybody. And, we don't want to be in the headlines of a national newspaper.
Absolutely. And Airbnb and Vrbo, to my knowledge, they do collect and remit your taxes, at least most of your taxes, maybe not all of them. Again, check with your local representation there for the actual laws and permits, etc. But this is an Airbnb and Vrbo collect and pay taxes area. As a matter of fact, I saw a statistic, something around $39,000 in tourist taxes being collected and paid to the local economy, and that's a wonderful thing. So again, you can usually, when Airbnb and Vrbo are, communicating and doing the taxes with the county for the county, you can pretty much guarantee that they do want us in this area doing this stuff, which again, short-term shop would not play around in any market where they didn't want us to be coming in and renting single-family homes for vacations for folks. So shouldn't be too much of an issue there. Well, Yok, I appreciate your time. Look forward to episode number 2. So stay tuned. Short-term show from Blue Ridge.